And despite what was happening, he was so desperate for answers. Even though he knew what the right thing was, he chose to do the opposite. He went against God's will, and he looked for answers through a counterfeit resource. A demonic, went to a medium. Don't do that, y'all. Do not do that. Counterfeit. Okay. It's illegal spiritually. Hey, lifters and listeners, welcome back to the Lift Her Up podcast. I am your host, Latrice. And if you have been watching or listening for a while, then welcome back. And if it is your first time listening and chilling with your girl, then just welcome. Just welcome. Thank you again for the continued support as you continue to subscribe, share with your friends, leave your comments, give your feedback, all the things. I greatly appreciate it so much so. And I wanted to share just an update with you guys. So again, I love the communication. I love the interaction with you all. I love reading your comments. I love just hearing your insights, you guys sharing your stories or your testimonies and prayer requests as you pray for me and each other. And I'm loving the community that we're building here. And the Lord is definitely shifting me into a lot of things to build to help structure this community in the best way and steward it in the best way that I can so that we can all feel that community and fellowship vibe. And overwhelmingly, the comments that I get, they're just so encouraging. But I feel like there are people that have a lot of questions, or there are people that just want to connect a bit more in this space or outside of this space, maybe have specific questions or want to share a specific story or maybe want a specific prayer request. So I wanted to make sure that those people that want to share those things but don't want to do it on the open forum of YouTube comments can still get their questions and things like that heard. So I created an email address specifically, you guys, specifically for the podcast and specifically for the ministry, I should say. And if you have any questions that you want to ask me in regards to anything that I talk about, God, personal development, mental health, things that I could help, give some insight on. Obviously, I'm not a professional, but if you want, just the big sis moment or just another wise counsel in your life, an outside ear, somebody that's a bit unbiased to your life, or if you have a praise report and you just want to share it with me, or if you want to give additional encouragement to me, hey, because sometimes I need it, y'all, or even a prayer request, because prayer in a multitude, obviously having someone coming and agreeing with you. Obviously, we are greater in numbers when we can share our burdens with one another. So I want to offer that opportunity to y'all. And if you have any of that you want to send, go ahead and send me an email. It is Latrice, liftherup@gmail.com. I'm going to put it in the description and all the things, but Latrice, liftherup@gmail.com. I love to connect with you guys. So make sure that you take advantage of that. And maybe even, if you feel comfortable with me reading a question on the show, I can even do that as well. So, the Lord is doing a lot of new things on this platform. So I really look forward to hearing from y'all. Now let's get into this episode. We are continuing with our fear series. Now, I told y'all, I don't know when the Lord is going to pull me out of this series. Like, I do not know. But today I wanted to talk about the fear of the unknown. Fear of the unknown, because the enemy plays on our fears so bad. And this one is no different. We become anxious because we hear other people talk about different opinions that they might have in regards to the future and about our lives or about their own lives. And we just listen, and we feed into all of these different scare tactics about things that we don't know, And it becomes a future that we feel uncertain about and that we are afraid of. Or it works in the opposite way, but we don't even want to pursue the thing that God has called us to pursue. And we don't want to go to that next step, even though he may be telling us we have to. So unknown circumstances can be the enemy's playground in our lives. It could be the biggest tool that he has against us because he's trying to prevent us from even getting to that unknown territory. So the fear of the unknown can cause a lot of intimidation for us. And today I wanted to talk about a few stories in the Bible, a few people in the Bible, and where intimidation was present and where it can lead us when we allow it to control our lives and control us. We are going to start in the book of Numbers 13, 30 through 33. Then Caleb quieted the people in the presence of Moses and said, "Let's go up now and take possession of the land because we can certainly conquer it." But the men who had gone up with him responded, "We can't attack the people because they are stronger than we are." So they gave a negative report to the Israelites about the land they had scouted. "The land we passed through to explore is one that devours its inhabitants, and all the people we saw in it are men of great size. We even saw the Nephilim there. The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. To ourselves, we seem like grasshoppers, and we must have seemed the same to them." Again, Numbers 13, 30 through 33. So the soldiers gave this report to the Israelites. Caleb is just trying to show, hey, we can defeat them. Let's go ahead and scope it out. But they did not want to give this report to the Israelites. So instead, they chose to give a fear report to them so that they could fear what was ahead of them instead of having faith that God could deliver them through it again. And we deal with this same fear today, which oftentimes causes us to be paralyzed, again, not to pursue the things that God has called us to pursue. And it prohibits us from walking in the purpose that he has promised us. So my question to you right now is, what's something that is intimidating you, that is stalling you and your purpose? I'm going to be asking a few questions during this episode for you to think about. But God is concerned with how we handle our fear. It's not about the fact that we have it. It's about how we handle it. We can either choose to have it consume us, or we can try to combat it. We can try to fight it with him by our side, with his help, the way he has always intended us to do. Now we're going to get into a comparison of two very interesting personalities in the Bible that I've been reading about recently on this fear of the unknown. Let's talk about Saul and David. So both of them face some uncertain circumstances, and let's walk through, see what we can learn from them. We're going to start with Saul in 1 Samuel 28. So Saul was faced with the Philistines coming after the Israelites again, trying to battle them again. And he had this fear of the unknown, and he fell victim to it. And ultimately, it led to his demise. It led to the demise of his kingship and everything. But let's read scripture just so we can know context of what happened. 1 Samuel 28, 5 through 19. When Saul saw the Philistine camp, he was afraid and his heart pounded. He inquired of the Lord, but the Lord did not answer him in dreams or by the Urim or by the prophets. Saul then said to his servants, "Find me a woman who is a medium, so I can go and consult her." His servants replied, "There is a woman at Endor who is a medium." Saul disguised himself by putting on different clothes and set out with two of his men. They came to the woman at night, and Saul said, "Consult a spirit for me. Bring up for me the one I tell you." But the woman said to him, "You surely know what Saul has done, how he has cut off the mediums and spiritists from the land. Why are you setting a trap for me to get killed?" Then Saul swore to her by the Lord, "As surely as the Lord lives, no punishment will come to you from this." "Who is it that you want me to bring up?" the woman asked. "Bring up Samuel for me," he answered. When the woman saw Samuel, she screamed. And then she asked Saul, "Why did you deceive me? You are Saul." But the king said to her, "Don't be afraid. What do you see?" "I see a spirit form coming up out of the earth," the woman answered. Then Saul asked her, "What does he look like?" "An old man is coming up," she replied. "He's wearing a robe." Then Saul knew that it was Samuel, and he knelt low with his face to the ground and paid homage. "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?" Samuel asked Saul. "I'm in serious trouble," replied Saul. "The Philistines are fighting against me, and God has turned away from me. He doesn't answer me anymore, either through the prophets or in dreams. So I've called on you to tell me what I should do." Samuel answered, "Since the Lord has turned away from you and has become your enemy, why are you asking me? The Lord has done exactly what he said through me. The Lord has torn the kingship out of your hand and given it to your neighbor David. You did not obey the Lord and did not carry out his burning anger against Amalek. Therefore, the Lord has done this to you today. The Lord will also hand Israel over to the Philistines along with you. Tomorrow you and your sons will be with me, and the Lord will hand Israel's army over to the Philistines." Whew, that was a lot to read, y'all. That was a lot. But we got to know context for these things. We got to understand context. So that's such a good passage. If you haven't read First and Second Samuel, please go back and read it. But Saul compromised his faith when he decided to go to this spiritist, knowing that God is not okay with that. So he compromised on his faith, and he went with that because he didn't have any foresight into what was happening. God wasn't talking to him. So he was faced with not knowing the outcome of the situation, with not knowing and not hearing from God. And despite what was happening, he was so desperate for answers. Even though he knew what the right thing was, he chose to do the opposite. He went against God's will, and he looked for answers through a counterfeit resource. A demonic, went to a medium. Don't do that, y'all. Do not do that. Counterfeit, okay? It's illegal spiritually. So when you don't get answers, where do you go? Where do you run to? Do you run to God, or do you run to an illegal counterfeit resource that is still subject to God? Just because you're not getting the answer when you thought, oh, you wasn't used to. Okay, let me move on. Think about that answer, though. Think about the answer. And with David, we're about to talk about David's issue next, but he had a slightly different response, not slightly, completely different response to the Amalekites when they raided him and his troops in their camp. So let's get into David. This is 1 Samuel 30, 3-8. When David and his men arrived at the town, they found it burned. Their wives, sons, and daughters had been kidnapped. David and the troops with him wept loudly until they had no strength left to weep. David's two wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelite and Abigail, the widow of Nabal the Carmelite, had also been kidnapped. David was in an extremely difficult position. Note that David was in an extremely difficult position because the troops talked about stoning him, for they were all very bitter over the loss of their sons and daughters. But David found strength in the Lord his God. David found strength in the Lord his God. David said to the priest, son of Ahimelech, "Bring me the ephod." So he brought it to him, and David asked the Lord, "Should I pursue these raiders? Will I overtake them?" The Lord replied to him, "Pursue them, for you will certainly overtake them and rescue the people." Oh, that was so good. So David was placed in an uncertain situation, him and his men was about to turn on him. Y'all, it said they was about to stone him. They came back, they wives and kids and everything was gone. They was about to stone him because he was their leader. And a lot of us would have folded under that pressure, just like Saul did, right? Because we felt that peer pressure. Oh my goodness. Like, these people, they about to get me, Lord. Now I have to try to figure something out in my own way because I don't know how I'm going to make it beyond this, after this. Lord, you've put me in charge of these people. First of all, before that even, you said I'm supposed to be a whole king out here in these streets over Israel, but I'm out here losing whole wives, children, family, villages at a time, all of our plunder, just everything. And yeah, a lot of us would have folded under that because what else are we supposed to do? What else are we supposed to do? But David chose to consult with God. He didn't give in to the pressure. He decided to keep having his faith in the Lord. And now some may say, well, Saul originally asked God, but it's just that God didn't respond. So why didn't God answer Saul? And my answer to that, I believe it lies in the way Saul responded. So Saul did not even wait to see if God was going to say anything after it said the Lord didn't respond in dreams and by a prophet, but who knows if he would have later? Who knows if God was just trying to wait it out to see how Saul was going to respond. And that's exactly what happened. Saul didn't get his way. He was used to God talking to him in a certain way. So instead of waiting and staying true to what he knew the Lord was going to call him to do, the statutes that he had, he chose to go about it in a completely different way. His response showed his heart, which was a heart that was not aligned with God, was not aligned for God's will, versus David's, which did, because of the way he sought the Lord immediately. He kept his faith in him. Because of control. Saul had a control issue, legit, kind of crazy. So are you seeking to control the narrative like Saul did? Or are you surrendered and submitted to God's narrative like David? And we've all been Saul at some point. We all have, because we naturally want to know what happens next. We naturally want to be in control of our future. We don't want things to be subject to change. We don't like that. We're human. We want stability. We want to be anchored to something. But why not anchored to God, who knows all things? We want to know that it will work out. But since we have God, we should know that everything is going to work out for us because of him. So can I encourage you? Can I encourage you for a moment? Even when you don't know, God does know. He knows everything. He holds it all together. The things that are unknown to us are never, ever a surprise to God. He knows it all. So why do we fear the unknown when we know who holds the unknown? And maybe the deeper question is, do you believe that victory is yours even when you can't see it, even when you don't see it? That's really the question, because the unknown is just theoretical, honestly. When you know the Lord, you know that the victory is promised to you. So is it that you doubt the victory that he's given you? Again, just another question to think about. Food for thought right there. Just another question to think about. Just some things to consider as those emotions come up of fear regarding the unknown, because y'all, God is greater than everything, and he will bring you through. He will bring you through. And when you are walking by faith with him, honestly, I feel like it gets a little better piece by piece. It stretches your faith for sure. It may be maybe a little bit scary at times, and as you go higher and higher, but I've said this before, but faith builds on itself. So when God has brought you through that little thing, the next thing, it should be easier for you to submit to him to that unknown thing, because it should get easier every time you choose to walk in faith and walk by faith. So let's not allow our fear of the unknown to shape the narrative of our lives or to take the reins of our lives away from God, because ultimately our lives are better in his hands anyway. All right. So that is going to wrap up this week's episode. Remember about that email address. You have any questions or praise reports, prayer requests, send them to me. I want to read them all at latriceliftherup@gmail.com. And again, with your permission, of course, if you have a question that you want me to read on the show, I would be happy to do so. But make sure you hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, share with a friend, leave a comment, 5 stars on Apple and Spotify podcasts, wherever you listen. You guys, I'm just so grateful and thankful that you are here and that you're tuned in. I love you all. And until next time, remember to stay encouraged. Bye.